Well, welcome. Thank you for picking this presentation. Welcome again. I'm Alex. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm one of the Oracle ACE directors, and I tweet and I blog. I wrote a book on Apex. And even though I said I'm never going to write a book again, some people tricked me into participating in another book on SQL and PL. And Brendan and Helly were here at this conference, so the three of us were. So my main job is I'm a database developer. I spend a lot of time in the database. Okay, so I'm kind of wondering who you are. Okay, there are some spotlights, but I can still see all of you. So if you fall asleep, that's fine. So database developers. Okay, so good chunk, right? Who's more of a like management type? Little bit there. Okay. So it's going to be quite technical of what I'm going to do with Apex and the database and so on. So just to give you a fair warning there. Designers who consider themselves more like the front end. Yeah. Well, okay, you see, it's always hard to tell people sitting in the audience like what kind of role they have or what kind of work they do. If you're in your workplace, normally when I'm at the site I work at, it's kind of easy to spot who's doing what. So you can tell by the way they move their head whether they're more of a developer or designer type. Okay. So just the first giveaway if you want to. All right. All right. Yeah. Welcome there. All right. So what am I going to do? I got an hour slot, so I'm going to be talking about 45 minutes, more or less. So we have plenty of time for questions. And if you have any questions, while I'm doing the talk, just shout out. I'll repeat the question in the mic, and we're good to go. Okay. So you don't have to wait until the end to ask your questions. We'll just go as we go along. So what am I going to do? I'm going to share some of my confessions. Okay, I'm going to be, and I'm going to share you my method of working with Apex and with the database. And also invite you to share your vision. Okay, I'm going to be saying some things, so you'll be like, that's ridiculous, that's complete. You can fill it in. Okay, so if you do, shout out. I'd like to hear that stuff as well. You don't have to shout it like while I'm talking, but you can do it afterwards as well, all right? So what am I not going to cover? I'm not going to cover HTML5 or CSS3 or JavaScript in detail, so we're not going to do that kind of stuff, all right? Security, I'm not going to cover security either. It's important. You have to learn about HTML and JavaScript and CSS and so on, but I'm not going to be focusing on that. I'm more going to give you like a the way I set up my database, the way I set up my the ground structure for that, and build the Apex application on top of that. So I'm going to share with you my first time. So the first time I heard about HTMLDB, it was called HTMLDB at the time, the predecessor of Apex. I think it was at a ODTalk conference in the United States. I think it was 2005. It was called ODTalk now, and they have a yearly conference. This year it's going to be in Texas. It's really great conference. If you're into development, database development, that's great conference. A bit expensive to go to visit, but it could be well worth. Convince your boss, and if you're a manager, you can just approve yourself, right? So during this conference, someone was doing a talk about this HTMLDB. And I was kind of curious about it, because I was doing forms at the time, Oracle Forms. Anyone Oracle Forms? Yeah. You're old guy, okay. And he was saying this, and that really sparked my imagination. He said, with HTMLDB, you can create applications so fast, you won't give the end user time to change their mind. One more time. With HTMLDB, you can create applications so fast, you won't give the end user time to change their mind. How awesome is that? Impossible. No, it's awesome. And that's like, wow, really? And I was I can't remember who it was who said it, but I thought it was like brilliant. Like I said, I was doing forms, reports, and if you recognize the icons, you're at least as old as I am. Oracle Forms, by the way, has a new icon. That's one. So if you see that one, that's Oracle Forms. Reports is matured. It's gone. Okay. So what I was doing at that time was like creating forms like that, like the green one or the blue ones, depending on where you were working. And I always had a hard time. I'm not a UI guy. Like I said, I do SQL, I do PL SQL. I'm most of the time in the background. Okay, so I always find it very hard to figure out stuff. And what really annoyed me, like if you have that menu at the top, you would always have to change it, because whoever would understand what action does, right? Oh, it needs to be changed to file or whatever. Well, maybe that's where the action in the interactive report came from. Just think. So I was really happy with the way he said it. He said, oh, you don't have to think about the UI, you don't have to think about this, that, and the other. He said, HTMLDB, Apex, comes with all these beautiful themes. So you just create your application and you get a beautiful theme. I was like, wow. You're not impressed, are you? Okay. Next thing he said was like, and it's for free. So I could, wow. So he said, you could go to your manager and you could say, oh, I want to do this stuff, and it won't cost you anything, right? And it runs everywhere. Well, everywhere if you have an Oracle database, right? Which at that time, we were working on a 9i, and we were transitioning to 10G. So we were cutting edge there, all right? So I was like, wow, we need to do this stuff. So I was really thrilled, really enthused about it. If you go to apex.oracle.com, you can find a thingy like that. And it gives you like the big overview of what is Apex, what can you do with Apex. And it's to develop it, it's easy. And to customize it, it's easy. And to deploy it, it's easy. But what they don't tell you is also it's easy to make a mess. And that's what I did. I created a messy application. They got a term for that, did you know that? It's called a craplication, because it was crap, okay? So I was really enthusiastic about this new tool that I had at my disposal, but the application I built, it was crap. Okay, so that was part of my first confession. I'm Alex, it's like application developer anonymous, right? I'm Alex and I create crappy applications.
We support you.
No, it's I do the confession, you say, hello, Alex, all right? So I'm Alex, and I create crappy applications. Hello. So if anyone wants to confess now or later, right, come up. So, and while I'm on this confession spree, basically, Shakib is one of the developers of the Apex team. They make the core product, right? He's the one who does the UI. He created the universal theme, the one theme that to rule them all. Yeah. And because he made that theme, now I really don't have to think about CSS or HTML too much anymore. So I really love this guy because he makes my life so much easier. Anyway, so apart from my love for him and my crappy applications, at that point, I really started to hate Apex, not because of Shakib, but because of my application. It was crap. All right? I really thought, it's easy to get started, but it's easy to make a mess. Yeah? So I really started hating Apex for it. But I realized, well, it's not Apex that I should be hating. It's basically like the developer that created Apex, or the application at least. So that was me, basically. So I started getting resent myself. And that's not a good place to be in, right? And I know I'm not the only one to create messy applications. Just saying, all right? Not blaming any of you, because you're all doing perfect stuff, all right? The thing is, if you're into Apex, you might have heard of apex.world. It's like the one go-to site if you want to learn anything Apex, or want to keep up to date anything Apex. Apex.world, remember that one. So it has several things. First of all, it has a Twitter feed on this side, on the, on your left side. It also has like all links of all new stuff. It has a Slack interface as well as a link to the Oracle forms. So great place to go to. There's also one part if you're new to Apex, which is called for beginners and how to start as a developer. Now, if you go there, on that page it has it's almost like a book, like, oh, you can do this and that and whatnot, how to get started. But it also has a diagram on it, and it says, becoming a professional Apex developer. On that diagram, it says you're at 30% if you start with Apex. Okay, and these are the resources you go to, apex.oracle.com and the Oracle learning libraries and so on. And you're at 60% if you learn SQL or Oracle database, SQL and PL SQL. It says learn the basic principle of the Oracle database, SQL and PL SQL. Say you were new to the Oracle universe, and you'd go there and you'd see that and says, oh, I just have to learn the basic principles of the database. Can you imagine guys coming like in high school now? They're coming there, oh, I just have to learn the basics. What are you talking about? Well, you don't have to go into the internals. You can if you want to. But you have to have a good understanding of SQL, PL SQL, what a database can do for you. At least that's what I think. In case you're wondering who it is in the picture, that's Mark Hurt. He's the CEO of Oracle. I thought it was funny, but the other one is my son. All right. So, me personally, I hate it if it's too easy. It should be easy to get started, but you should really think about what you're doing. So, I hate it if you have just a basic understanding. And don't even get me started on generic. Right? So I'm not going to go there. I believe that little knowledge does the most damage. If you only know a little bit, you can really mess things up. Let me show you what I mean. So if you're in Apex, you probably have seen the sample database application. And it shows you a report on the customers. Yeah? You've seen it. So say this is our production application. And if you go look at what's behind this report, you can see there's a SQL statement there. It's just a select on the demo customers table, and there's like the customer name is being concatenated last comma first, and it also does some stuff with concatenation on the address as well. Well, first of all, what if someone decides, well, it shouldn't be last comma first for the name, but it should be first space last? Then you have to go into each one of the reports and so on. What you got to remember is that all the SQL or PL SQL that you put into the code editors in Apex, it's all going to be executed as dynamic SQL. Okay, so it's dynamic SQL. Keep that in mind. Now we have this wonderful application on the demo customers. And now we get a new requirement. I don't know how it is at your shop that you work in, but the shop I'm working at currently is like if they have a new requirement, they put a post-it on your monitor and say, oh, we need this. Do it. So very agile, let me put it that way. So we're going to introduce customer rating. So just do it. So SQL, PL SQL. So I open up my SQL Plus or SQL CL. I'm going to change the demo customers. So I'm going to add a customer rating. I'm going to put a comment on the column, of course. How do we rate this customer? We're going to update it to a default value and make that customer rating mandatory. So it's going to be required. Questions? No. Good. So what's going to happen to our application? Sorry? It breaks. Now the question is going to be, when does it break? Because running the report, it's all good, right? So it seems fine. If we're going to change one of the customers, you're going to make some changes, like it's not going to be John, but it's going to be whatever, and we're going to hit save. What happens? Well, all seems good, right? Because we make changes to an existing record, and it has a default value of 5 for the customer rating. So it has a value, so all seems fine. So ship it, right? The problem starts occurring when we're going to enter a new customer. So create a new customer, enter some details, hit add customer, and that's when your application breaks. Right? So that's when your application breaks. It breaks at runtime. Yeah? And you see the exception pop up there. So what would be, no. I could ask you like, okay, so what would be a fix for this one? Sorry? Maybe a default value. Well, to end this a little bit, it kind of depends. So maybe a default value is the way to handle it. Maybe the customer rating should be a field, an enterable field. Maybe, it depends. Okay. The key takeaway from this one, or this little demo, is that it's all dynamic SQL. So your application doesn't break at compile time, it breaks at runtime. Okay. Because we started changing the demo customers, it's pretty obvious that we need to check the customer's report and the customer forms. But your application has way more pages than that. Where is the reference to the customer table, or that customer, where should we add that rating to it? So it's kind of like, wow, yeah, we basically don't know, right? So you can open up your builder, and in the top right corner there's a search field, so you can enter the table there, and after a bit of waiting, because it needs to search through the whole application, it gives you a list of like, oh, there's a reference to the demo customers table there. And there's some more concatenation going on there, but all right. So then you finally get to, okay, I need to check this. So you open up the builder page, the one you found, and then it's like, right, so it could be, where is my demo customers table? Because it could be in a lot of places, right? So you're still going to be searching around like, okay, where did I put this demo customer, and why did he? Then you figure out like, oh, well, you can also, in this one, search your current page only. And with Apex 5.1, you can also add like a search from the builder page itself as one of the tabs. But it feels a bit like, where's Waldo? At least for me, it felt like, where's Waldo? Do you know where's Waldo? Yeah, so it's a little guy with a red and white striped shirt. In the US, it's very popular. And they give you like a drawing like that one, and it says, okay, so where's Waldo? And fun to do with little kids. So where's Waldo? We have 41 minutes left. So that's what it felt like. Going through that builder page, where's Waldo? Can't find him. So the next slide took me quite a while to make. Anyone want a wild guess?
In tent, I think. So.
In the tent. No, he's right there. Yeah. So it's a lot easier if you get pinpoint like, oh, he's right there, right? So it's easier if the builder tells you, oh, it's right here. So or this is the pages that you should check, right? So like I said, it's easy to make a mess because you can sprinkle SQL and PL SQL all through the application, but that leaves you like searching for it. Okay, I said it before and said it a couple of times. Ich bin ein database developer, so I like to do things in the database. Okay. So database at the bottom, Apex on top, but I think it should be more database and less whatever front-end application you're going to put on it. I think the front-end application, Apex in this case, should be a thin layer of veneer on top of your database. So if you start developing your application, start in the database, always start in the database, and then focus on that layer of veneer. So most of it down there, and a little bit on top. So it all starts with a great data model. I'm not going to tell you how to make great data model there. Hallie did a talk on it, and there are a lot more talks on it and books on it and so on and so on. So I spend a lot of time in SQL Developer and SQL CL, that kind of stuff. So the way we set up our applications, or I set up my applications, we have our tables and our data model at the bottom, Apex on top, and we separate everything with views and packages. Yeah. So that's like the basic principle. Tables, views and packages, and then the application. So I'm going to start with the page alias, like how do we set that one, and the page groups, how they work together, basically. We never access the tables directly, and we create one or more views per page. And we only make calls to packages. All right? So those are the things we're going to discuss, that I'm going to discuss now. So the page aliases. Each application has its own application alias. Yeah? So the page alias is going to be the application alias, followed by the page number. So struct is the application, struct 1234 is the page alias. Okay? Based on that number that we assign to the page, or the alias, you can also make a logical, like, okay, this is the general part, this is the main application, this is reserved for reporting, and this is for maintenance and configuration. And of course, this is just a ballpark figure. It depends on your application, your situation. Like the reporting should be the majority of the pages, or the main application where people enter data should be more pages. Of course, it just depends on your situation, all right? So this is what I set up for now. Yeah? All right. So based on that, those page ranges, we also kind of say like, okay, this is going to be a master page, and this is going to be a detail, and so on. So we have the 1000, and that's kind of our dashboard page, which has a detail page. It's called 1010. Right? So you don't have to know anything about the application. And if someone tells you like, oh, you need to focus on 1020, you know at least it's a detail of 1000. And 1020 might have more details as well, 21, 22, 23. So that's the basic structure that we put down. We also like to put the alias of each page on the page itself. Okay, so we like to put it in the bottom left corner or bottom right corner. It just depends on your theme and so on. And we put the alias in there as well. Why do we like to do that? If you communicate with your end user and you ask them to send a screenshot, most of the time they will include that as well. So you know which page it is. Okay, so you might have two pages that look almost similar but are completely different. Now it is this page, period. See, it's a lot harder to tell your end user, oh, you need to go to the URL, to the what? Then you got to find the F question mark P, there's a colon, followed by the number, a colon, and so on. And then they give you back the session ID. I'm like, ah, no. Okay, so that's why we like to put it there, all right? So how do you get this alias on the page? If you're pre-5, yeah, you could query the metadata, like the Apex application pages. You use this query as the arguments, the app ID and the page ID, and get the page alias out. Create a computation, application computation, and create a computation item at application level. Plop in that query that I just showed you. But now you have to put this computation item in the template as well. So you have to adjust the template, find the footer, and put that application or the app page alias in there as well. Yeah. Now all the pages that get rendered, they will show you, and it will show you the alias at the bottom of the screen as well. If you want to the latest version, 5.1, you can use the substitution app page alias dot. Don't forget the dot, important thing. The way we did it is just put it next to the release number and put it there. And now if you render the pages, the alias will be on your page as well. So that's an easy way to keep track of which page am I looking at and where is it in the complete picture of the structure. All right? Questions on that? All right. So the page groups. In the previous shot, or at least in the navigation bar, I showed you like there are different sections to our application. A home section, charts and report, and the maintenance one. It's always kind of like that list that is shown, you can have it like it should be active for certain for certain pages. Okay, and it's always a hassle. You always have to adjust that one, also current for a number of pages. But there's an easier way to do that, and that's by using page groups. So in the builder, go to your utility section, and on the right-hand side there's a page groups section. Okay. So what we normally do is for each entry in our menu in the navigation list, we create a page groups. So we have 3 page groups: charts and reports, home, maintenance. Now, to get it automatically highlighted, the correct one in the navigation list, we create a function. Page in group takes 3 arguments: app ID, the page ID, and the page group name. All right, and it also queries the Apex application pages. Yeah. So now that we have our function, is this page in this group? Yes or no? It's a Boolean. We can have the list entry and focus on the current list entry and make a call. So this one is for the home page. For the current list entry, make a call to that as a PL SQL expression to that function we just created. App ID as an argument, app page ID as an argument, and like the name of the entry for your navigation bar. So now when you create a new page and you select the correct page group, or if you have a page already made, assign it to the correct page group, it will automatically highlight the correct navigation entry as well. Yeah? Easier way to do it. Okay. Now the next 2 I'm going to cover together. So never access the tables directly, and 1 or more views per page. And that might spark some discussion, so just giving you a fair warning. So this is our application, our structured application with a couple of pages in there. What we normally do is create a view per page. And it's the naming convention that we use is v underscore followed by the page alias. So it's meaningless in a sense that it's just an alias, but it's meaningful because you know that view is related to that page. Yeah? So page 1010 has a v underscore struct 1010 view as well. 1020 has its own view. 1021 has its own view. And if you have multiple blocks on your page or multiple reports or whatever on your page, the one is implicit, so we just go suffix it with 2, 3, 4, and so on and so on. Okay? So why do we do that? There must be a table somewhere in the database, right? If the table would change for whatever reason, customer rating was added to it, you can query your dependencies, or that view might become invalid. But you know, because of the dependency between the table and the view, or the other way around, the view and the table, you know you would have to check the view, and you know you would have to check the page as well. Does that make sense? Yeah? So it also affected that one. We missed that one in the first round, right? So we know we have to check 21 as well. Yeah? Fix the view, fix the page. So then all of a sudden your application with all your pages and so on, you kind of know which pages do I need to check. The one with the red X's. You need to check those. They might be affected, they might not be affected, but you have to check it. You have to go there, you have to figure out what's going on. Yeah? So for the report you might want to skip it, and you say, okay, that page is good enough, but for data entry you might want to add that customer rating to it. Questions? So now we get to the view parts, right? So for reports, we like to make our reports read-only. It's a report, so read-only view. For regular views, like if it's not a report, they may always make a distinction between simple views and complex views. Simple views are, well, they're easy, right? They're easy to deal with because most of the time just a single table and so on. And the complex views, well, they're a bit harder. Yeah? So the simple views, you just follow the wizard, just like you do when you go through the wizard based on a table. Just follow it, and you're good to go. Add the check option to the view as well, because you don't want to change data that you can't see. So add a check option to your view in case of a simple view. So that's easy peasy, just follow the wizard and you're done. The complex views, well, they're a bit harder, because most of the time it's like a join, or there are aggregates in there, or analytic functions, or whatever kind of thing you have, all right? So you can follow the wizard, point to the view, but you have to do some manual work afterwards. You have to replace the DML processing. Okay? So that's where your skills as a SQL, PL SQL developer kick in. So we have a table, the view, and Apex on top. And as long as it's a simple view, just one table, like the DML that you're doing, the reports that you're showing, it's easy enough. Bless you. The complex views, they might join a couple of tables, right? So you query it, and it's shown in Apex. Now for the DML processing, you would make a call to a package, and the package would take care of whatever DML needs to take place. Or if you're more into, oh, I like my table APIs, add those as well. You make a call to your package, which calls the appropriate table APIs, which calls handles the data. So far, so good?
One question. Isn't it better to just keep a regular routine and add, instead of trigger on views, which you pose a package and table APIs and so on?
Okay. So the question is, well, that's all nice, but you can also use a regular DML processing to trigger the view, which triggers the instead of triggers on the view. Correct? Yes. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of triggers, and I always find it very tricky to create the instead of triggers. But that's just me, I'm kind of dumb. That was part of the confession as well, right? Another thing is, if you try to lock the record, and it's on a complex view, I ran a couple of times, I ran into like it can't lock on the row ID, because complex view doesn't have a row ID. So I kind of went away from the using instead of triggers on the view, because of the way Apex handles the locking mechanism. So, but like I said, I did that a couple of years ago, so I might have to regurgitate that again. I like to be a little bit more straightforward than that. So, yeah. One thing that I mentioned is like, well, you got to be careful of your locking. But what I meant was, you have to be careful for your last update, actually. So, say you have your table at the bottom, Scotland, Department 10 is in there, and you have your application on top. If you enter the report, or if you ask for the report, you get a connection to the database. It will give you all the correct data. It will be shown up on the screen in your browser, but your database connection is lost, right? So you make some changes there, and you send it back. You set up a database connection, make the changes, and that's it. Works, right? It starts being a problem if you have multiple users, and who doesn't have multiple users. So we have two users, one table with one source of truth. One queries all the data up on the screen, and so does the other one. So they both see the same data. One makes changes to the department, while the other one makes changes to the name. First one commits their changes, saves their changes, sends it back to the database. Database is changed, connection is lost. Now the other one comes, saves their changes. Now what will happen? It just overwrites whatever was there with whatever was in the browser. So the first one, well, it just lost their update. And they're going to refresh the screen, and it's going to say, but I just, what? So you need to take care of that, because you just said, okay, I'm going to replace all the DML processing created by the wizards. Now you have to take care of it. One way of handling that is to include like a MD5 hash to your data. Okay? So now when someone queries that data up, it will not only include the table data, but also that hash value. And the other one does the same thing. Shoop. So the first one makes changes, second one makes changes. Yeah. First one saves their data. Now you have to check the hash value in the form or in the screen compared to the newly calculated hash value on the database. And if they're the same, then you're good to go. And you can make your changes. Yeah? Because a value is changed in the database, the hash value is also changed. Yeah? Now, if the second one saves the changes, sets up a database connection, the hash value from the screen is checked against the hash value in the database, and says, well, you can't do it, someone else changed the data. Yeah? And at that point, the transaction is stopped. Oh, please refresh your screen, someone else made changes. Something like that. So how can you create like an MD5 hash like that? If you go to the SQL workshop, under the utilities section, there is a utility and it's called method on tables. Of course, everything like in Apex is wizard driven. So you select that one, you enter a package name, and you select table or tables, and it will create a package for you. Or at least it could generate it for you. You can have it generated in the database, but you can also just look at the code. And part of that code that's generated is building up that MD5 hash. So this one is on the demo customers, and use the Apex util get hash based on all the values there. Yeah? So that's the important part there. To process it, and update is especially useful, this is the way they generate it. So the first thing that's important there is it locks it for update. It does a select for update on your table. Yeah? It then says, well, okay, we're going to build that MD5 hash based on the values in the database. If the argument is null or it's the same as the one we just created, like the argument coming in as the one we just built up, we can do the update. If not, so the MD5 hashes must be different from the screen and from the database, then we're going to raise an exception. Current version of the data, blah, 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 and so on. So that's how you prevent your last update. So the question is, well, what if you're going to make changes to one of the tables, right? Add a column, drop a column, change the column, right? Do we need to regenerate that? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And in this case, it doesn't matter if you're using like a package like that or if you're using instead of triggers, because you also have to make changes to that as well. Yes. So that's a nice utility. It does it for you. No? But in case of complex views, you might have to have multiple tables to lock at the same time and to do your MD5 hashing. Yeah. But most people tend to forget about that part about the last update. At one point I was doing this talk and someone said, well, I'll make the end user choose if I should implement this last update detection or not. I'm still at loss for a word for that, so it was kind of a strange remark, I thought. Any other questions? Did I answer your question? No. Any other questions? Okay. So last one, only calls to packages. Anyone using standalone functions or procedures? Good. Ooh, was that a hand, really? Let me get my cane, hang on. No. No, I think you should only have packages, no standalone functions, no standalone procedures there. I think that should be obvious. We'll have a drink and we'll talk about it. Yeah. we were toying with the idea of, with our application, also create like a package which is specific for that page. So use the same alias, suffix it with the package, and that one does all the specific page functionality there. So it could be as simple as like MD5 check-in, the insert, update, deletes, and so on. But that's really an old way of thinking about your pages, about your applications. You could also have it more functional, like process a customer or create a new customer, reimburse this order or validate this whole order thing, whatever. So it's a more functional way of doing things. Okay, so the functionality is tied to your page. From this page, of course, you can call several other packages, right? So if you want to create a customer, say, okay, we're going to create a customer, but also add the address detail over there and do whatnot. Yeah? And maybe have a utility package to go along with the application, like for the page in the group, or whatever kind of function you can come up with. And if you write code, if you write PL SQL, instrument, please instrument your code. And if you're like, well, what do I need to do? You need to register or at least record all your, what are you doing? What is the code path you're taking, and so on. And if you don't want to write your own instrumentation functionality, Logger. Google for Logger, and it'll send you to a GitHub page on Aura open source. Great product. Okay. So I covered this. I showed you how we use the page alias. I showed you how it relates to the page groups. Never access your tables directly. Create views, one or more per page. Use packages. Okay. So you might or you might not agree with my ideas about how you should structure your application, but hopefully I made you think a bit more next time you're going to create an application. Yeah. So, and of course I invite you to share your thoughts about it as well. Okay. You say, well, we always do this, and we like this way better than whatever you're doing. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. So in that case, I have just one final confession to make. I told you I really hated Apex. Right? I really, really detested it. Which is not true. I really love Apex. I think it's the best tool ever. I love it way better than Forms. I loved Forms, but I really converted. And what's really nice about Apex is the community that Apex has underneath it. So it's not just the development team from Oracle. At numerous conferences around the world, they also tend to show up. And so you can ask the developers as well. But the community is really good. If you're on Twitter, search for the hashtag #ORCLApex, and you get all kind of Apex news and information. And if you need some help, reach out on Twitter, #ORCLApex. Go to apex.world. It's a community site. Oracle has nothing to do with it. It's the community that created or made Apex as big as it is. Apex is really awesome, and the community is really awesome. So that's really good. What I also really love is people that have their heart in the right place, and what I meant with that is create an application, create a database application. So put all your stuff in a database first before you move to whatever user interface you're going to use. Okay? So if you do that, you have my sympathy. Right? So I shared some confessions there, my love for Shakib and my first time, how I create my messy applications. I shared with you my method of the way I set up my applications. And hopefully you're going to share your thoughts with me as well. Tell me what you really thought of it. So also fill out the speaker evaluation thing, but also tell me. Yeah? Any other questions or comments? Let's start down here. Yeah.
Okay, I have this one idea. Let's say we have this dynamic approach for these SQLs, and everything is dynamic execution.
Mhm.
Do Oracle have some tool? It's everything in database. Maybe we can validate automatically. Run something and validate everything what is in this Apex schema.
Right.
Somehow.
So
Or do
so so your application, everything is generated dynamically.
no, about with SQLs.
All the SQL and all the PL SQL,
Yes.
PL SQL as well. Anyway, like if you have SQL that is generated dynamically.
No, it's no. I think about page. In page we put this is
Yeah.
SQL. Yes. This page
Okay.
information is in Apex schema.
I
And
see.
do validation some kind of
Yeah.
automated.
I see. Okay, so the question is, like, because everything is dynamic SQL in Apex itself, is there a way to validate
Yes.
that? In Apex 5, yeah. If there are places that you, first of all, don't enter SQL in the pages. Put your SQL in a view.
Okay.
And only put in the select from the view in your page.
Still.
So, yeah? So now your question is, okay, well, what if I select a view which doesn't exist? If you open the SQL editor in the builder page, there's a checkbox that you can check and to see if your statement is valid. That's as good as it gets. The thing is, it's dynamic. Yeah? So it will always break at runtime. No matter how many checks you will do in your application, the minute you change the table, drop a table, whatever, there's no way of the applications to know that the table is gone until runtime.
But can we run some tool that checks?
But
this?
can you run some tool? Yeah, run whatever tool, but there's no guarantee that your application is still valid. Because you run your tool, I dropped the table, your tool said it was fine, it still doesn't work.
Why not? Idea is because we have with SQL statements is in Apex. It's also stored in Apex some tables in Apex schema.
Yeah,
And
true.
we can query with schema and validate.
Yeah.
if
So
this SQL
So even the SQL statement that you entered in Apex, it's metadata in a table.
Yes,
Yeah. So we could check this one.
yes.
Okay. So you run your tool, query that table, parse everything. I drop the table. It still doesn't work. So
It's more like automatic testing against Apex.
automatic testing would be against Apex. Not sure.
Yes, but practice to
It's
to do.
Query data, test this interface, so it should
yeah.
identify.
Oh, that's okay. I see what you're coming from. Yeah. So like automatic user interface testing, that would basically propagate your exceptions to you. Yeah. It's a good discussion for on the 6th floor, I think. And there was another. Yeah.
Okay, so I have not so much experience with Apex maybe, but we assume we have a deep relational database in 3 or 4 levels. For example, we have ships, containers, goods, many goods in containers, many containers in a ship, and now we provide sort of master detail in many levels input. We have to provide lookups to look up for ship when we specify container and so on, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And now comes the moment users enter data, and at one moment she decides, okay, I would like to cancel, and I would not like to save this data. So, would you provide this method to handle, to have this data in web form, not in database, to provide this
Yeah.
and so on?
So the question is like, if we have like an extensive database scheme with lots of master details and so on, you have your application sitting on top of it. Someone enter all the data that they want to enter in at several, that should go into several tables. As long as the user doesn't hit save, nothing's going to happen. If they hit save, then they're going to set up a database connection, and then all the action is going to take place. So if they enter all the data in your form, nothing happens. Nothing happens on the database side. Does that make sense? So if they hit cancel, well, then
It's gone.
it's gone. That's it. If they hit save, that's the moment when your DML processing kicks in. That sets up a database connection. That calls your stored procedure with all the payload, all the data that you entered in the form, and that gets sent out to all the tables, 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 out to all the tables.